Business on Purpose podcast.
A schedule defends against chaos and whim. It is a net for catching days. That was written by Ann Dillard. Hey, it's Scott Beebe with the Business on Purpose podcast. Our goal is simple. We want to liberate you from the chaos of working in your business, and we want to help you let your business burn. The weekly schedule is something we get pushed back on a lot. It is a tool that we teach to every single one of our heroic small business owners and their team members. But man, do we get a lot of eye rolls as we go through it, just to be honest with you. And, you know, in defense of our heroic small business owners, they tell us up front, like, this one's going to be a challenge. This one's going to be a challenge. But the reality is what Ann Dillard said is true. A schedule really does defend against chaos and whim. And it really is a net for catching days, catching hours, catching minutes, catching seconds. See, today's a special day. A friend of mine yesterday, he and his wife had their first child. 0 years old. Today, it's 1 day old. Today, I have a child that is 18 years old. She turns 18 today. So this idea of catching days, of catching time, is real to me. Most things are renewable. A lot of times right now, at least oil is renewable. Sunshine is definitely renewable. Wind is renewable. There's a lot of renewable energy that's going on. Now, will we run out of oil? Yeah, I'm sure at some point we probably will. Thus, it will not any longer become renewable unless we find new ways to generate it. But there are so many renewable things in this world that keep going round and round and round and round. But the reality is even in the last 2 minutes that you've been listening to this podcast, you'll never get that 2 minutes back. Which is why it's important to invest your time in things that are wisdom. I hope this podcast is wisdom for you. In fact, I read another quote the other day. It was so powerful about the power of books and reading. And it said, and I think it was John Steinbeck who said, books are an axe to the frozen river of the soul. Books, reading, are an axe to the frozen river of the soul. That's why surrounding yourself with wisdom is so important. And that's why counting our days, in fact, there's a psalm that says, teach me to number our days. It's 115 for me. 115 days for Ashley and I before our daughter moves to university. And so we're counting our days, not because we're obsessed, not because we're over the top, just because there's wisdom that says, teach me to count my days, so that we'll be aware of them, so that we'll maximize that time. See, in understanding a weekly schedule and why it's so important into the world of a small business owner, we've got to understand a couple of principle-based things. Number one, there is a gift in restraint. That's right, restraint is a gift. Think about the child or the adult who suffers from epilepsy. Restraint is actually helpful in a lot of situations for them so they don't harm themselves or other people. Think about the athlete. All athletes have to live under an atmosphere of restraint. They're called boundaries, sidelines. If they don't live within the restraint of the sidelines or the boundaries, they can't be world-class athletes. LeBron James is not LeBron James without the boundary of a basketball court. Tiger Woods is not Tiger Woods, just recently won, I believe it was his 5th Masters in an incredible comeback story. Tiger Woods is not Tiger Woods without the boundary of a golf course, the limitations of the distance of a golf ball. Restraint is actually a gift. These boundaries are a gift. And we've got to learn to understand, to realize that having not only boundaries, but in many cases self-imposed boundaries can be a real gift for us. Think about the person who does not self-impose the boundary of healthy eating. The person who does not self-impose the boundary of exercise. The person who does not self-impose the boundary with their words. We were with a group of guys. Every week we get together with about 10 or 12, at this stage, sophomore boys. They're about to be junior boys. And we had a dear friend who invited us. Typically they come to our house, but we had a dear friend who invited us over to their house and said, hey, let us cook dinner for you this time. And so all the boys went over there with their trucks and their Jeeps, and their toys and everything. And of course, sophomore boys are sophomore boys. And so one of the boys pulled up on the grass of a neighbor's yard, and it wasn't really clear that it was actually the neighbor's grass. It looked kind of like a common area. Well, that neighbor was out of his house immediately, looked at me, and here were his first words: "Get off my yard. There's sprinkler heads on there." Not good restraint. Not good restraint and understanding what's going on. Now, some of you are revolting, going, "Well, Scott, you've got to understand that there's a lot about..." Yeah, but it's more about the human relationship in that moment. It's more about understanding and saying, "Hey, man, if you don't mind, could you have the guys maybe park over there?" Restraint, diplomacy. There's value in restraint. There's value in diplomacy. There's value in boundaries. So I want you to think about this. When you go throughout your week as a small business owner, as a team member within a small business, what boundaries are you self-imposing that is actually bringing life, bringing innovation, bringing new ideas, bringing inspiration because you've got the boundary? What boundaries are there that you have self-imposed to say, this boundary is in place so that I can be better, so that others can be better, so that our business can grow and can serve? I'm having to put boundaries around myself right now because we're currently working on something that is really, really powerful. If you go to mybusinessonpurpose.com, you'll see a button that says join the wait list. Join the wait list. And if you want to join the wait list for something that we're building and launching in June of 2019, I've got to put boundaries around myself to get there. Hence the weekly schedule. Now, we can talk more about the weekly schedule later. We've got a whole module on it in our 4 Steps to Business Freedom Roadmap coaching program. But in the weekly schedule, what you do is you take your days in the old classic Big Rocks, Small Rocks episode of life. You take your days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You fill up your days with the big rocks, the big things, the work that needs to get done. And no, I don't mean email and phone calls and text messages. I mean the actual work, the estimating, the bidding, the bank reconciliations, the sales calls, the big work, the work that you've been designed to do. We've not been designed to sit on email all day and waste away. That's wasting our days. That's not counting our days. But instead, the weekly schedule allows you to fill your days with the big rocks, pack in the small rocks, and live by those and have conversation. Guys, we want time management, but we're unwilling to put boundaries around our time. So I'm going to ask you to do something different. I'm going to ask you to do something with a weekly schedule, to wake up every day in your weekly schedule and look at it and go, hey, where am I supposed to be today? Where's the highest and best use of my time today? Hey, I know it's a longer podcast than typical, but gang, it's important. Your days are going by. Your life is growing up. Your children are growing up. Count your days. Self-impose boundaries so that you can be a great leader, that you can be a great parent, that you can be a great spouse, that you can be a great friend. Because the weekly schedule is not just about productivity. It's more about the things that matter most. And that's what we're interested in helping you to get done. It all starts with a vision. Go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. Or if you want it all, go to letyourbusinessburn.com. The book's right there with everything in it. In fact, I walk you step by step on page 87 through a weekly schedule. Letyourbusinessburn.com. See you next time right here on the podcast.